Hello, hello. Welcome to the Black Cinema Experience. My name is Cameron, and we have a wonderful show for you today. I have a friend here, a co host, somebody who's awesome, a film writer, poet,
All right, that's enough. That's
activist.
enough. What's up, y'all? My name is JB. I'm happy to be a co-host on today's show, Black Cinema Experience. We're going to be dissecting some really interesting topics on this show, and I'm so excited to get to know y'all.
Alrighty, well, today the movie we decided we want to start our first podcast on is going to be School Days. Now, this is a wonderful musical comedy by none other, written, produced, and directed by none other than Spike Lee. I want to start off with a quote, though,
Okay.
from a movie critic. He goes by the name of Roger Ebert. I got corrected earlier. I kept saying Ebert, but I believe it's Roger Ebert.
Yeah.
And it says, in its own way, School Days confronts a lot of issues that aren't talked about in the movies these days. Not only issues of skin color and hair, but also the emergence of a black class, the purpose of all black universities in an integrated society, and the sometimes sexist treatment of black women by black men.
Sometimes. Wow. He really summed it up for us there, didn't he?
He did. The funny thing is, Roger Ebert is a white man. So this is in 1988. So I think that's a very prolific thought that he had, critique as far as understanding some issues that I feel a lot of black people today don't still get.
Yeah.
So it's good to get that. So we want to dive into the movie. School Days is a wonderful movie about the college experience from young black people or young black youth, and they're enjoying themselves. But we have some major controversies as far as some huge topics such as colorism, sexism, activism for black people, and also the topic of historically black colleges. Are they necessary or they're not? So we're going to jump right on in, and start with colorism. It's a huge issue. I mean, that's something we still face today. Like, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Colorism is a big deal. People get treated differently based on how light bright they are, how dark skinned they are. There's also an idea of the darker skin you are, the more dangerous you are.
Mm-hmm.
The lighter skin you are, the closer to whiteness you are, so the safer or the better choice you are. So Spike Lee really plays on colorism a lot in this movie, specifically with the Jigaboo versus Wannabe scene, where I just feel like that whole scene for me, I don't care how many times I watch it. I do see brown skinned girls on the wannabe side, but I mean, literally, it just looks like light skin versus dark skin, good hair versus kinky hair, black versus black. Though at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, literally the same thing. It's so funny because I really tried to tell JB that it wasn't necessarily light skin versus dark skin.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, because I watched it, we watched it multiple times now. It is kind of like a color scheme.
Yeah.
Ordeal, and even when you do see the fairer skinned girls with the quote unquote jigaboos, again, we don't agree with that term. This is what they're called, but I'll say the beautiful chocolate people.
Okay.
Or there'll be some beautiful chocolate people amongst the beautiful light skinned people.
Yeah.
But they were pushed. You kind of see they were kind of pushed back, and they brought the contrary. Natures up front so everybody can see.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting, and I think it was a huge issue to tackle because, like I said, it's something we still struggle with today. There's so many different issues as far as like what we consider to be beauty, what's beautiful.
Yeah.
Lighter skin tend to always equate more to European standards, and and darker skinned girls can tend to always say like these are our African roots, so we're going to stick with it.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be a healthy middle with that, or do you think it has to be either or?
There has to be a healthy middle because think about the people that we've had leading movements over time, right? You have your Malcolm X, light skin,
Angela Davis,
light skin. You have even the ones that are still around today, like the nigga on Instagram, Sean King. Like, what color are you even? You know what I mean? You got Colin Kaepernick. These are light-skinned people that are still making these black-ass stands. So at the end of the day, colorism, it totally exists and it matters, but we all are on the same side of it when it comes down to being, oppressed by somebody else. But, of course, there is a unequal balance between dark skin and light skin. But we have to talk about it. We have to have the uncomfortable conversations more. And Spike Lee, I mean, watching this film, School Days, is one of the first times that I actually witnessed them discuss light skin versus dark skin. You know what I mean? Having that conversation, even on TV. I can't think of a lot of other movies that actually bring up colorism made in America.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny you bring that up too, because like literally we also have so many different issues as far as like trying to distinguish like what is right about colorism or what is wrong. Like I feel like there is nothing right about the separation of color.
Right.
But I feel like you should still be able to be considered beautiful, whether you're light skinned and like trying to present yourself more European or like assimilate, which I understand you work in corporate America or you do different types of jobs. That sometimes you do it to make sure you have your paycheck. So, so I understand that. Or, where you're going the opposite way and you're being quote unquote rebellious, which it shouldn't be called rebellious, but when you wear locks or you wear your hair natural, that's quote unquote rebellious. But that's also beautiful too. And I feel like it's, like you said, we find a happy medium, but it's like, do we continue to divide of like saying this is more beautiful or that's more beautiful, or like how do we like come to terms with this? Like
I think the new generation has a really good understanding of accepting people as they are,
right?
Because those things that were once really controversial, that required all of these songs and the "I am not my hair," all of these things in the past, even going natural being such a huge statement, that stopped being a statement. I remember a couple years ago. And I was living in Atlanta, and I met this guy, and I just thought he was going to be so woke because he had these dreads, and he was like, no, he just wasn't that type of guy. But back in the day, like dreads used to be symbolic of just being woke, and now it's just Black people expressing themselves exactly how we should have always been allowed to express ourselves. So when it comes down to it, the new generation has the right idea, but when we really start making a difference is when Black people can do exactly what white people have always done, like make movies about nothing. When we can do what white people do in that regard, then we'll really be free from all these standards. We can actually start putting ourselves into the world, representing ourselves as we are. Dreads, locks, no hair, mohair, etc. Even gold teeth. Like there's certain things that are just like culturally Black as fuck, and it's something that we enjoy. But we've been told that it's ghetto for so long. And when we start seeing ourselves represented in a way where it's not ghetto, it's just who this person is, then we can really enjoy our differences. And we don't have to think about colorism so much. It's really just about getting those Black people in the roles where they're making the difference. So.
Absolutely. No. And I'm glad you brought that India Ari reference in there. I'm not my hair. That had me in a chokehold in high school. Y'all don't know. I used to have hair back then. And I'm trying to grow it back. But I was really feeling that joint.
Yeah.
But speaking of colorism, and I kind of focus on the color Black, because in this movie, there really aren't. Well, there's one white person I saw in that movie, and I watched it a couple of times now. Right. And so I think that's crazy, because I can't think off the top of my head. I need to do more research. But to see a movie that was just an entire Black cast, and then a Black cast that's not necessarily stereotypical, it's like a multifaceted view of so many different Black people, literally all in one movie. You have the Black dean of the college, so he's part of the elite, getting a paycheck. We have the fraternity life. We have people who are activists. We have they go to the KFC spot. They have the Black people that are still stuck in the ghetto. So I feel like that was like really crazy to see it just a Black movie.
Yeah, it's true, especially for that time frame for the 80s. I think it was made in 88.
Yes.
So I mean, for that time frame to have that type of energy, on set. But then again, there's a whole side of it that we don't see. This is the 80s, so who are the people holding the cameras and capturing this Black experience, and how did that actually shape what was captured?
Right.
I wonder if there were enough Black people on set. We don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mean, not to take away from the movie, but like they kind of parallel. I've heard Monique, your favorite Monique, talk about Tyler Perry Studios, though, like being able to walk into a studio and see predominantly a Black staff. Yeah. Which is not something that you really get to see in Hollywood or anywhere else for that matter, unless you're like doing like Nollywood in Nigeria, but that's a completely different experience. So to have like, $1 billion, especially now, $1 billion recording studio or television studio. Yeah. That was built on like previously owned slave masters. It was like, it's a huge feat. But to see that back in the 80s before, billionaire status, to have that experience, I think it's amazing. I think it's revolutionary.
Definitely. It's leaps and bounds from where we were. I think that my only concern is because sometimes, and this is like no shame to Tyler Perry, but since you brought him up, and I wasn't going to bring him up, but since you brought him up, I feel like he reflects Black people sometimes very poorly in a lot of his movies. He is definitely keeping the single mother stereotype alive often, or the dating inmate trope alive, or this Black man made it to success and left his wife for a mixed woman that he already had kids with. You know, like the tropes that he like puts out there are just not the best for the Black community. And then the plays that he makes, I feel like have a tendency to be degrading and kind of like show off our more arrogant side, not arrogant, unintelligent sides, you know, like when he makes fun of, you know, people's aunts and things like that. He definitely gives off some Step and Fetch vibes. That's all I'm saying. He's putting on a show for the whites. Like, he's making Black content that white people will say, oh, these Blacks are so funny, but it's not really truistic of Black people. But I'm not shitting on Tyler Perry. That's not the intent.
Well, Spike Lee has. Not controversy.
Has he?
I think he, and forgive me if I'm misquoting this, Spike Lee. I love you and I love everybody, but I believe he called it coonery buffoonery, or they were talking about it. Yeah, so, and that's a huge.
That's my sentiment. That is my sentiment. Yeah.
I mean, forgive me. I do have Tyler Perry as a guilty pleasure, but I will say that my college professor, who wrote the book, You Mean There's Race in My Movie? I can't think of his name right now.
You mean there's race in my movie?
It's a textbook I have because I took Black cinema in college.
Okay.
So I have some insight, just a little bit.
Okay.
But he was saying that, like, you know, it's okay to have the inside joke, because we all have somebody have a grandma like Medea. You met somebody like Medea. The problem sometimes stems when we put that on the big screen and then other people are aware of something that's cultural.
And people don't talk about it, but it's kind of why Dave Chappelle walked away from his comedy show. Back in the day, they were like, why did he walk away from all those millions? He was like, well, it was cool at first because Black people was laughing at it. But then when I saw white people laughing too, I was like, wait a minute. You know,
exactly,
it's kind of why he had to put the brakes on it, because it's like, you don't want to share our inside information with everybody because we're still not allowed everywhere they're allowed. Yeah. So it's like giving these insider trader secrets to people who are laughing at us instead of with us because it's not their experience. Yeah. So yeah, coonery buffoonery. Spike Lee said that?
Yeah.
It sounds right.
It was in an interview. It was him and another gentleman. I can't think of the gentleman's name. Forgive me, but I can probably try and link it into the podcast so you can see it.
Okay.
But they were talking about the problems with Tyler Perry, and I said, "Oh, that's very interesting." Because and the reason why I take it seriously, because Spike Lee has been making Black movies since the beginning. Yeah. Like of his career, and he attended Morehouse. What? You know, so he's he's been all about the Black experience from the beginning. That's something he's always made. You know, made it his mission to present Black people. So I kind of you kind of have to like give him that, like his props, and like let him know, like, you know, I have to listen to this opinion, that this is the man who's doing this. You know? But that kind of segues into another like small subject, but like with the Black stereotypes you were talking about, because I feel like that kind of sometimes we kind of get that in the movie, and it can kind of spew into sexism. But like we talk about the tragic mulatto stereotype that we kind of have with the wannabes, because with the sexism that goes on in the show, like, you know, light skinned girls are considered, you know, more pristine and more beautiful and more like
they're ladies, they're women. You know, the men actually could see them more like women and respect them more. Exactly. Versus the dark skinned women who are treated more so like not as great in the movie. But when it comes down to it, even the light skinned women at the end of it got played. So I think that it really boils down to men, misogyny, them having control, all of them, Black, the guys and the girls, all being oppressed people, but the men still finding a way to oppress their own women. So even as low as the men had gotten in this movie, with the things that they were doing and their actions and everything, they were still oppressing another group. They were still oppressing the women. The women were still carrying their burden. They were still planning for their organization. They were still giving them money and supporting and cleaning up and doing things for the brothers, you know? But that loyalty is often one-sided and very blinded. So the misogyny, it runs deep. And it's very reflective of how things are still operating within the Black community, in my opinion. You know, Black men, they do what they want, and Black women are right there to pick up the pieces and to support their business ideas and to financially be there and to physically be there. And even after all of their being there for them, even after all their support, they still get played out and used, like how Tisha Campbell was used in School Days.
Yeah, literally. And I wanted to talk about that because in that scene before when they're planning the party for Gamma Phi Gamma, I believe it's Gamma Phi Gamma, and all the women are discussing it, the wannabes, the light skinned girls. In JB's opinion, the light skinned girls.
Yeah.
But they're called the wannabes. They are planning this huge event that they do every year. They raise the money for their own event, so they didn't ask the fraternity for any money. And then one of the girls complaining. She's like, She's like, I'm not no man. I'm not cleaning up after them after this. And they're like, these are our brothers. We gotta,
look out for
them. And
them.
they're like, well, they're not gonna put it in. No, we always put it on for them. Why would they put it in? And it's like, that's crazy to think that they're like have like this position to be like, we're still gonna take care of them. That's our place to take care of them, make sure everything's fine for them, so they can shine.
Yeah.
And I thought that was crazy because even I feel like that classes kind of continued because when they have the intersection with the Jigaboos right after before they go into their wonderful, wonderful musical number.
Yeah.
That they duke it out in. The wannabes approach the quote unquote Jigaboos. I don't want to say Jigaboos. I'm going to say the beautiful black girls.
Okay.
The
beautiful brown skins.
Exactly.
Yes.
Beautiful light skins, beautiful brown skins. That's what we're going to do.
Okay.
When they approach the beautiful brown skins, the beautiful brown skins say, don't you know how to say excuse me? And then like the beautiful light skins were just like, it was like kind of like, why would we even say excuse me?
Yeah.
And I caught that. I was like, oh snap! It's like that kind of classism too. Like it's not just like the colors. It's like the ideas that come with it. There's a sense of like superiority that's happening. Yeah. And it could be obviously from the fraternity and all that stuff, which goes into it too. But I mean, when it's a black story,
that's just like Spike Lee, what he did with that, and it's so funny because in the movie there's so many little like kind of passive aggressive things that we see throughout the movie. But when you really think about colorism and why it exists and how it exists for it to be displayed in that movie, you have to go back to slavery. I mean, this is stuff that we're brainwashed to believe from our ancestors. It was, well, she has good hair, so we want to do, we want to take care of her. She's light skinned, so she's pretty. So this stuff gets passed down. So of course there is this imaginary hierarchy that these light skinned girls operate with, thinking that I'm better than you. Duh, I have light skin. And it's like, it's really shown off in that movie a lot because of colorism. The wannabes, they want to be, white. But it's because they were told that white and basically assimilating into white culture and white society was better. So they believe that hierarchy. They believe that that's true, that being closer to white is better. They have, their higher class things, their higher class organizations, and they think that they're better than the dark-skinned people. And it's just obviously not true. The only difference between the two culturally really is that the dark-skinned people, the beautiful browns, buy into everything black, and the light skins are still believing that white society is better. So they are organizing themselves as if they are white society for the white man's approval, kind of. So again, colorism makes a huge play, but it kind of even shows up in how they go about living their daily life. Yeah.
Like that, and that's crazy. And it's like full circle because literally I wanted to start jumping into like, how do you feel as far as beautiful brown men and beautiful light-skinned men, how the masculinity,
you said it right the first time.
I was tripping over my words. The masculinity aspect plays a part into it because you see like when they were pledging, you kind of see like how even then the more down to earth brothers, who are with the more with Dap's side of the crew, which is the activist. He's the one that gets
Lawrence Fishburne's
character, Dap. And then they're darker. They have their more natural haircuts. No long hair, which I appreciate. Like no, people don't do afros. They do like little short, petite haircuts. But then like short, like number ones, half an inch, whatever. But fades. But the beautiful brown men, beautiful light skinned men have like nice like curly hair, like because it's Giancarlo plays Julian, and he's actually Puerto Rican, so he has like wavy hair, lighter complexion, like and a lot of the other dudes too. Like I forget his name from A Different World, the really light skinned funny guy with the wears glasses. Oh, because they're both in there, Kadeem and I forget his name.
You know what, Freddie? His name is Freddie in Different World.
But I'm saying he's on. He's one of the Gamma Phi Gamma. So I feel like it's crazy like to see how. Even though, in a sense, like, the men are kind of like the hierarchy of it, there's still like that separation. Like there's still like that classism kind of aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the Gamma Phi Gammas are like the most important people of the campus.
Yeah.
Like even when they do their parade, and they have like this huge parade, and they're like the last ones to display. Like they're the only ones with the float. Like literally everybody else is in cars marching on the streets.
Yeah.
But the Gamma Phi Gammas are with the on their float. So I thought that was crazy, like to see it. Like it wasn't just even with the women; it was like literally throughout the entirety of it. But you would feel like, I don't know, maybe it's a stereotype, but with the men, it would be like more equal as far as like color, because like I feel like both sides.
Because like right, why are men judging each other based on societal beauty, et cetera, et cetera? I understand what you're saying, but I think that again has to do with like the society and how it was back in the day. Because I mentioned this before, but there's a book, something that I read a long time ago about like the 1800s called Blue Veins, and like if you're light skinned enough for your blue veins to be seen, then you can be part of this elite high society group of black people, light skinned black people. Again, they were closer to white, but they were still discriminating against dark skinned black people. They still want to separate themselves, and they want to only make babies amongst themselves and make light skinned children. So there's still that classism that exists. So to see the Gamma, the guys, the pledges be these pretty light skinned boys, right? It just goes more to say like they were pushing the agenda heavy that light-skinned people, and again, back in this time frame, you had to really put an exclamation mark on your sentences. You couldn't just kind of make a point. You had to make it really big and loud. So they were really saying, yep, light-skinned people, light-skinned men specifically, are closer to real men than dark-skinned men. So we're going to go ahead and give them this title, and we're going to put them in these organizations, and we're going to put them ahead of everything, and we respect them more, and they naturally get that. But then on the flip side of the colorism that way, there's also that side that I mentioned earlier with the color of your skin also indicates for men your safety level, essentially. The lighter skin you are, the less threatening you are to society. So maybe more jobs you can get, but the darker skinned you are, the more of a threat you are to society, the more dangerous you are, the more that they fear you. So colorism, again, shows its face in the movie in that way as well.
But my thing is, I feel like sometimes the problem with that is because I like to bring up the track in mulatto, because I feel like when we come to our beautiful light-skinned people, a lot of times, I like saying beautiful light-skinned people, but a lot of times I feel like in the narrative they're always played to be like this evil, because either like, they're trying to present, or they're trying to like exist more towards the spectrum of quote unquote whiteness. Yeah. But does that necessarily mean they have to be necessarily evil? Because I feel like the bad guys, from my opinion, like it could be different way you viewed it, but from the movie, you're kind of getting like the bad guys are the Gammas. Yeah. And they happen to be the light skin side, and the good guys are free loving black people, but they happen to be like darker, browner skin. And, and going based on what we talked about earlier, as far as like activists being light skinned, major activists like Malcolm X, Angela Davis, like if you want to throw in Amanda Seales today, like these are like lighter skinned, fairer skinned people. Yeah. But in the movies, they're portrayed as like evil. I feel like, even though like in real life, they're the ones that are leading the they're helping, And so that's I don't know. Did you get that in the movie? I feel like that's what I was kind of getting. I was like, that's kind of like not fair in a sense. You mean like them villainizing light skins? Well, because Julian is like essentially the villain. Because even with how he treats Tisha, he does a dirty, y'all. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I guess I never actually thought about that before, that they kind of villainize light-skinned people in the movie. It's true. It's 100% true. But I think that at the time, I think Spike Lee was really pushing the point on don't be a sellout. Yeah. And going into these fraternities at that time and what they were doing, it really was them denying their blackness in a sense, because the wannabes had their blonde hair and their extensions. And again, they were really leaning in on that, going towards the white side of things. They really wanted to be socially accepted. So yes, they did villainize the light skins. They didn't do that to the dark skins, no. And then Lawrence Fishburne, I mean, he's light skinned, but he was down with his afro, so we know the side we're talking about. We're talking about the natural black people. No, seriously, because he had the natural girlfriend, hair. Yeah. That's one thing I'm a little sidebar. I hate when they do that, because I know so many like beautiful dark skin or brown girls who have really long hair, natural hair.
Yeah.
I don't know why it always has to be like they have to be bald head. And there's nothing wrong being bald head. Like you still serve. No, I emphasize yeah, there are those women who go bald or who like locks or anything, but there are also women who have just naturally long hair too.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. Like you can still be natural and have really long hair, or even be pressing it, like and still be dark.
Yeah.
But
again, they had to really emphasize we're the natural people and we're the non-natural people. Like they really had to put an exclamation mark on that at that time. I think now we are allowed to see a little bit more character diversity, but then it had to be one against the other. It had to be very clear.
I mean, I'll give them that. Because I still feel I feel like it happens a lot, but
and it still happens. Yeah. No, 100%. Like, why in everything I watch, I don't care how dark skinned the guy is, if he has a black wife, she is still eons light skinned than him. And it's funny, like y'all don't think that we see y'all pairing up all these dark skinned black men with the goo-goos of the world. We definitely see it. We see it all. So it just doesn't make sense to me. They don't even want us to be paired up together in movies.
Yeah. Which is crazy. I mean, and they bring it up kind of in the movie Jungle Fever, which I also think isn't that by Spike Lee too? I'm pretty sure it is. But that'll be a different podcast. So with Wesley Snipes cheating on his light-skinned black wife with a white woman. And the women have a conversation about that. So we definitely get into that. But I also want to kind of segue into a more serious subject that's talking about as far as sexual assault, or it can essentially be called rape. That happens in the movie. And I was so glad Spike Lee brought this up. Because I feel like that's something that happens not just at black colleges, but in colleges across the world. It's something very common. I feel like a lot of young people don't understand the topic and don't understand consent necessarily. And so bringing it up, there's a scene where Tisha Campbell's character is coerced essentially to having sex with one of the pledges, which happens to be Spike Lee's character, Half Pint.
Right.
And he's a virgin, which we also get into talking about, virginity amongst men and women, sexism, but also how coercion is essentially rape. That's
right. So in the movie, she obviously didn't want to have sex. She was crying. She was just do whatever you have to do, But essentially it breaks down to rape. Even if she said it, the whole tone, the vibe, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to be there. So definitely rape occurs in the movie. Again, the men oppressing the women, and they're all at the very bottom, but they still find it in them to put someone beneath them even lower. And then basically he coerced her into having sex with Half Pint, and then dumps her for having sex with him. So again, there was a lot of mental manipulation there, a lot of gaslighting there. But it just goes to show that, men, they can take advantage of a woman. Black men are still taking advantage of women. This happened back in the day, I'm sure. Literally. I don't enjoy that scene in the movie. It's actually gut wrenching to see how she's so willing. Cause again, it just goes, she's pledging this undying loyalty to him, she's doing everything she can for his frat. She's doing everything she can to show up, to be the perfect girlfriend, and then he still sells her down the river like she wasn't worth anything.
Well, it goes to, that selfish ambition, because he did ask her, would you do anything for me? She was like, anything, She's very desperate to get his approval.
Yeah.
That's what she's been
seeking the whole time.
And throughout the whole movie working for, to be the perfect, like you said, perfect sorority sister, perfect, president of a sorority. Obviously, as I watch it as I'm older, it is very uncomfortable, because you start to realize how coercive it is. He tricks her. He's like, "Will you do anything for me?" He doesn't tell her she's about to have sex with somebody. He just leads her into a room with a whole bunch of men. So just being in that scenario, the only woman in a room with a whole bunch of grown men. And you don't want to make it over exaggerative, but these are all fit men too. These are all very capable, very strong men.
Yeah.
So you kind of already feel kind of out of place. Anybody would feel out of place, So then he leads her into this room, and then he's like, half pint. Didn't I tell you I had your back? I was gonna make you a man. I'm not pledging. I'm not pledging or crossing over any virgins. And so he like leads Tisha Campbell. She's like kind of putting it together in her head, but like still kind of confused. He's like, okay, what's going on? And he leads them, and all these men follow, and it's like at least 10 guys to a room called what's it called I think it's called like the boom room or something like that.
Yeah.
It was something disgusting, which I can verify that they actually have stuff like that in college. It's like I've seen people like this is the room. You're like, this is STDs. Like, wow, that's crazy.
But the men essentially wait in the hallway. The only one that goes into the room is half pint.
Yes.
And even then, the pressure though, it was immense. It was immense for her to absolutely have sex with him. It was almost like she didn't have a choice. She was pushed against the wall. You know what I mean? She had to agree to it. And then also she had that responsibility to him, that obligation to him where it's like, I said I'll do anything for him, so I'll do this because he asked me to do it, just for him to gaslight her and then dump her after the fact. So, I mean,
when he asked her, did she actually do it? And she was like, yeah, you told me to. And he was like, I can't believe you actually did it. Like, crazy. Like, what?
He was looking for a reason to leave her all along. That's how I felt when that scene happened. Because he already had the girl lined up. So he was already just looking for his exit. And he was like, yep, this time I'm going to get her. Just very manipulative. Yeah. Just not a good thing. But again, I think that colorism plays a part in it too, because he had to have his girl. She had to be light skinned. She had to be one of the wannabes. There was a whole infatuation with him basically leaving Tisha for the next wannabe. Well, who did
Jasmine guy?
Yeah, Jasmine guy. Yeah, there was an infatuation with him and these light skinned women, and this is just kind of how honestly, again, it's weird because society still sees light skinned women in this way. They see women in this way, period. But a lot of times I do notice, as a light-skinned woman, they really do tend to sexualize, oh, she's light-skinned, she looks like this, before you even see the girl, you hear, oh, she's light-skinned, she got curly hair, etc. They sexualize our features, they make it all about looks, and then they can easily throw you away like you're disposable. So, yeah, it was a really hard scene to watch.
Yeah, and painful.
Yeah.
Because she does fall on tears, which is like, obviously,
like,
who could blame her? But I feel like, again, that plays into that, I told you, the villainization of light-skinned people, because even when Dap's character, Lauren Fishburne, typically, or, he does his girlfriend wrong by not supporting her, it's not seen as like, it's not bad. Like, oh, I feel like he's showing like he can possibly do something as bad as Julian, which kind of makes me feel unsettled too, like as far as like, I feel like you kind of drive home like that light-skinned people are evil.
Yeah.
aspect of it, which I'm like, I don't know about that part. But that also, I want to talk more about Dap's activism in the movie, because I feel like it's also a very important part of the movie as far as them advocating for South Africa, or the apartheid movement for South Africa, which is very important, don't get me wrong. But do you feel like, as far as like Black people and activism, like what is Black activism? And again, this is not a definitive answer. This is our opinion. And do you feel like Black activism is, when I say Black activism, is it like just toward Americans, or should we include our brothers and sisters in South Africa, or people like, Black people in Europe? Like, is it the same? Like, how do we encompass that? How do we fight for activism for Black people, or what we consider to be Black people?
Well, I'm okay with saying this, because I'm an American, but every country, in a way has to kind of fend for themselves. African history, their culture, their experience isn't ours. Black Americans have a completely separate experience, right?
400 years worth.
We are descendants of slavery. We can't go back and find out where we came from. We don't have any, connections to our roots. I don't care how many ancestry DNA tests you take. You don't know what land your family had or what they didn't have. You don't know what your real family last name is. You'll never find that information out. So when it comes down to Black activism, I do feel like it is a separate issue to handle Black activism in America versus being like, okay, Black activism, we got to care about our brothers and sisters in Africa. Now, as a general human, we should care for each other, in the world. As people, we should care about each other. But the bottom line always is going to come down to, they don't share our experience. They didn't have to go through what we went through. They don't have the same loss of history and loss of basically who we are, traditional values, culture, all of that.
Language,
You know,
everything.
everything. They're not experiencing what we're experiencing. So the activism, though it's important to, you know, see that in the movie, I think it was really misfocused. But at that time, I think it was really accurate, because I think a lot of Black people then were like, we're going to go back to Africa, and that's the stance we need to take. And it's like they got to Africa and they're like, maybe we shouldn't go back, y'all. Maybe we should just, you know, make the best out of America. So I think.
Well, so every time we go back to Africa, they want something in Africa too. Like there's so much colonialism that happened in Africa, so it's kind of like, what do you go back to?
Exactly.
Like, you know, when it's already been raped,
that too.
And then we built this. It's
we literally built this. Like, why would you leave? Like somehow we know that our ancestors definitely created a lot of this land that we're on. You know, like I don't know exactly what they did in Africa, but here I know that I'm the descendant of somebody who built something. Exactly. So, you know, this is ours. Mm-hmm. What would I leave to? You know what I mean? I just want to make the place that I'm at better. Because I don't know. I don't think I'm moving to Africa anytime soon, but it's not that I wouldn't. Yeah. I just know that I'm an American.
Well, it's just the culture. It's a completely, and again, you can move anywhere and get the culture. I understand that. Yeah. But it's a difference. Like when my Mexican friends or Mexican family members go back to Mexico, they have Mexican roots. You know what I'm saying? Puerto Ricans, they have Puerto Rican roots. Haitians have Haitian roots. Yeah. When I come to America, we have Southern roots. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a conglomerate of like all the different experiences we have. So again, so I'm for activism. And I think it was a good way to segue, like, you know, thinking about other issues that aren't affecting America. But I feel like I want to see a movie like that's really focused on the activism in America. In America, you know? Yeah. Only in America. But seriously, like, I really feel like that's something we need to try to focus on. But again, this is 1988. Right. You know.
And for Spike Lee being 31, I think he touched on so many important topics, because I mean, he touched on colorism. He touched on the mistreatment of women, you know, basically. He touched on activism and, you know, fighting for our rights, and he also touched on Black education. So the Black education one is really, really a big deal, right? Exactly. Because, like, I don't know, growing up in California, I didn't know that many people that went to college. But when I moved to Atlanta, even the people that I thought were slow had fucking degrees. Exactly. So it's like seeing Black kids educated and at college and just doing what, you know, essentially we're supposed to do, from the different types of them being the frat boy all the way to Dad's character. I mean, it still was one of those things that Black people needed to see on TV. And it was one of the first times that we got to see it in that way, in such a large, diverse group of Black people in college, learning, bettering themselves, getting a career. It was one of the first times that I actually witnessed that. So again, representation matters, and him making it in that way with a all Black cast really helped us see the world differently, I feel like.
And also in a safe space, like, because usually, I mean, we know that in the real world, not to like
go ahead,
downplay things, but like in the real world, you got to think about how will police perceive you. How are you perceived in this, you know, majority white space? But when you're in a Black space and you're able to, you know, have fun, you're able to party, you're able to, because they were playing a song "Doing the Butt," which was but in a safe space. I know people, you know, they want to talk about safe spaces. You know what I mean? Everybody needs a safe space. You know, people need a safe space to be able to grow and not be penalized, you know, for a mistake. Yeah. Especially when it's like something minor, you know, learning how to interact. We're not talking about like major stuff. You kill somebody, you going to jail.
Yeah, for sure.
But like you need to be
being able to make a mistake as a kid in a Black space, and instead of them looking at you like you're a grown man and sitting you with for the rest of your life, they're like, oh, you're 18. Yes. You were drinking and driving or something. That's normal. We don't need to take away your entire life. But we are punished harder in white spaces. Yes. You know. And then there's Black spaces too, right? Because we got the people in Black spaces that work really hard to prove a point, and make a lesson. So there's that too. But yeah, it was important to see that as well.
Definitely. And so that begs the question, I guess we could say, after talking about all these issues plaguing the Black community, what would you describe Black cinema to be? Like, if you could just have a definition in your own opinion, what would you say Black cinema is?
Well, I think that Black cinema, it can't be reduced down to just one thing, because it's forever evolving. I would say that Black cinema is a combination of the past, the present, and the future. It's constantly changing. I mean, in the past, it was this expressive thing. I mean, even in School Daze, you see there being these little one-off moments or these little one-off songs, and they're having this like really deep communal moment. And it's not something that you see on TV all the time, but at that time you would see it in School Days. You saw it in like Living Single. You saw it in the Cosby Show. There's just a moment of just blackness that's happening. There's an exchange that's happening, and maybe other races don't get it necessarily. But those who get it, those who it's for, they get it. If you was raised in a black household, these jokes did not miss you. So to see our expressiveness, to see how in the past it was always expressing us through our music ability, through our talents that way, like the whole musical dancing and just the bright colors of the wardrobe and the hair expressiveness. I mean, there's just so many different ways that we express ourselves. So we have a little bit in the past, and then, you know, you have the present with current day stuff that you're seeing, which is like you're seeing more black love stories, you're seeing more black professionals. You're not seeing that same trope of the black drug dealer family or the single mother who's making it work. You know what I mean? You're seeing a little bit more of the proactive, head-on straight type black family. So that's where we are right now. We're finally transitioning to a place where we don't have to survive in movies anymore, and we don't have to make these great grand gestures. We can actually just make a simple point, like other people have done forever in movies. It's just like, oh, we're just watching a happy story, and it doesn't always have to be about some type of survival or some type of drug or pimp or some type of, you know, negative trope that they like to associate with black people. And then obviously the future, because we are leading the industry. We are changing things. Our music isn't everything. Our acting isn't everything. Our dancing isn't everything. We are just so captivating. You know what I mean? So now we're getting more into the future of it all, where we're getting these different roles. We're vampires now. Now we're not just doctors. We can also be superheroes too. And like there's all of these combinations now of just seeing black excellence. So I mean, black cinema right now is this ever-growing monster that's constantly evolving, but we're getting a little taste of everything. Black as fuck. It's art.
I'm gonna steal this because JB came up with this earlier, but you call it the black gaze. Which, I mean, I think you need to like get that copywritten so you can make it. But the black gaze is the male gaze. So think the male gaze. Okay. How, you know, we always watch movies and we over sexualize women. The black gaze is when white people watch movies and they're seeing things and receiving a black experience. Right? This is how we talked about it. Go ahead, say it in your words. No, I can't remember everything. Well, that's what to me. The reason why I said the black gaze, when you came up with it, I thought it was perfect to explain it, because when you think about black cinema, it doesn't even necessarily have to be all black people. You can have the black gaze, but experience it through the black person's experience. Right. Like, being it like, so when they say black cinema, that's what I wanted. I feel like it's a complicated like trope to say black cinema, because you know, I want to go over and I want to discuss, you know, black directors, black producers, all black films, but you also have to go to, so what about, are those films like, as far as like something like Clueless, who like a lot of black people have watched, and you know, have black characters, that, you know, that are very, you know, distinct characters and very popular that you could look up to in a mainstream, you know, mainstream society or whatever. Right. So when you said the black gaze, it just clicked to me, because like being able to see something through the like a black person's point of view. When Denzel Washington was talking about directing Fences, he was saying like, you know, Steven Spielberg directed what's the movie? It's a Schindler's List. Okay. Which is like, and he understands that he's probably had family members that, you know, could have passed away in Schindler's List. Denzel Washington was saying, you know, it's not necessarily about like who's directing something, but he said when a black girl gets her neck burned from curling her hair, I know that smell. Yeah. He pointed Viola, you know this, so we know that smell. Yeah. A white person don't know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They don't know what it's like getting your hair pressed on Sunday morning for Easter service. Yeah. So you know, so that gaze is something that's important, because that's only something you can experience through the actual black. So and I thought that was. I mean, I don't want to sound all deep, but I was like, whoa, that's like. Yeah. You don't understand, like, you know, like it's like when we say macaroni and cheese. I know everybody's like, oh, macaroni and cheese is so basic, but it's like when Italians get to boast about their cuisine, and French people get to boast about their cuisine, and Nigerians get to boast about their cuisine. What do black people have? Right. We have macaroni and cheese. Like, you know, like literally, and it's I don't want to make light of it, you know, like that's something you can take pride in, because people taking pride in pasta all the time, like, you know, you know, marinara and all this other stuff. I'm like, well, you know, baked macaroni. But everything that you should take
pride in, they definitely made us feel shameful in America, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, okay, niggas love mac and cheese and fried chicken and watermelon. Like, okay, damn. Like, don't y'all have things
It's
too?
good.
But they make everything that we love and enjoy, you know, ghetto. They even make our expressive ass music like a bad thing. You know what I mean? So culturally, they have just brainwashed us to believe that the shit that we love and enjoy are negatives. So we don't ever get to boast about it. We don't ever get to have culture. The worse we feel about it, you know, the ghettoer it is, you know, the less that we actually get to enjoy it and enjoy ourselves. So being able to make these movies and give people this opportunity to experience the Black gaze, so they can understand a little bit more about our culture, maybe understand a little bit more about us, so we won't have so much violence, we won't have so much division, separation.
Well, to be able to see us as human, and I feel like that's something that I know everybody's like, we all just want to be humans, and I understand that too, but I feel like to be able to see the validity of being a different human and being okay with that. Yeah. And being excited about that. Yeah. And not thinking that's taking away something from you. Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I love Italy. Like, I want to visit. I mean, we're going to visit. You know? And France has my heart. But it's like, but I wouldn't want you to take that. I wouldn't want to take that from somebody else, like, you know, wanting to come and visit California, you know, and like this is LA, like, you know what I'm saying, and going to Compton, 137th and Tata, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and I feel like that's not me taking away, like, from the beauty of those other places. Yeah. Vice versa. Understanding each other is just literally just expanding your brain to more wonderful possibilities, more different things. I mean, because, it's 100% true. When you get to experience other cultures and you actually can appreciate them, you can actually move forward with them versus basically what they've always done in the past, which was ignore each other. It's kind of weird now though, because how, you know, these streaming services have all this control. And every time I go on my TV, I'm only seeing Black shit. And I'm like, well, this is still some form of separation. Yes. Because I still want to be a part of everybody's culture, just like I want everybody to be a part of mine. I hate if white people got on their Hulu and only saw white commercials and white people, but I get on my Hulu, that shit Black as hell. We should all be seeing the same things. So we can all have an understanding for each other. So I think Black needs to be in the forefront. And I understand people are like, you know, some people do it maliciously, like for virtual signaling and stuff like that. Yeah. I definitely understand that. But at the same time, if you feel like you don't want to participate in that, you can definitely support your Black producers, Black film writers, like JB, your Black musicians, Black, you know, artists. Not just that, your Black lawyers, your Black doctors, your Black, like, if that's how you really want to get down. You know? Yeah. And so that also, I want to address, like, so is it still so important to focus on these things? Like, why is it still important, or like is it still such a big deal? Are we making like too much of a fuss? Like, oh, Black people need to have their work, you know, like recognized, and it should be at the top. Like, do you think we're asking for too much? Is what I want to say. I don't think that we're asking for too much. I just think that we should stop asking the wrong people. You know, I don't think that we're really supposed to like be in a tizzy. Black people have to learn to value Black people first, so we can actually have our own Black Emmys and Oscars and all that stuff. Because until and it has to just be as valuable too. Like, however much these white people are dumping, we got the money. Okay, we got money too. However much these white people dump into the Oscars and the Emmys and the Grammys and all that stuff, Black people need to have that for ourselves. And when we have it, don't go find the first biracial person or the first down white person, you know what I mean, like a Justin Bieber ass, to be like, we're going to give him an award and he'll win an R&B song. It's like, why are we giving white people stuff in our category? This is our shit. Like, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm a person who believes that we should all be able to do these things together. But I really don't feel like Black people should be asking white people for these things, because we amongst our own community should have already established their worth. Yeah. They should already be established as these multi-million-dollar actors that are this high up, just based off of our community validation, versus looking at the Emmys and being like, that's the only thing that we respect. This white organization that has kept us out for years and years and years. It should not be 2023 and we're still here for the first time. Such and such won, first Black. And it's like, really? Like, really? Wow. Why are we over here anyways? Like, we can just go do our own thing at our own table. But I don't know. Black people, we definitely fight for a seat at the table when we could have just created our own table. We have the means. I mean, we have the means. Why are we not doing that? So separate but equal. I'm joking now. I'm joking. Kind of separate but equal, just a little bit. I'm joking. It'd be cool if we could be together, though. No. I would like it if we could really be together, but, you know, I think it will happen. Yeah. I think it will happen. I think that people will start taking the NAACP serious, like more serious, because it used to be something that was like a huge honor. And I know people are kind of like, oh, I got an NAACP, but I got an Emmy. It's like, no, I got an NAACP Image Award. Like that needs to be something important. Like, you know, BET, I don't know, because I don't know if this. I don't think it's owned by black people. I know it's like that's like black entertainment, but I don't know if it's actually owned.
There's some black. There's some niggas in the house for sure.
I'm saying.
But
I'm gonna find out for y'all next time.
I'm pretty sure 50 Cent is one of them.
Is he?
Yeah.
I'm actually not shocked by that.
Yeah, he had all them shows out there.
Get the strap.
Exactly. But his shows is good, but they're always the black struggle. Yeah. I'm tied up in one right now with a drug dealing mama, single mother.
Are you talking about Patina Miller and?
I'm talking about Kanan. Yeah, that's right.
But Patina Miller, shout out, musical theater legend. She's awesome.
Is that who
amazing?
She is?
Yes.
Wow.
She did Sister Act the musical.
Wow.
She won her Tony for Pippin. If you don't
know, the mother of Kanan in this show. Are you serious?
Patina Miller, yes.
This woman is incredible.
She was in Hunger Games. She was the last general. She's a baddie. Check Patina Miller out. I'm just
wow, my mind is blown. This is my first time seeing this woman, and I'm just every time I watch her, I'm just like I'm infatuated. You're an amazing actress. Even the little boy. Yeah. Y'all, this is an amazing cast. I love all the names y'all chose for this. This is great.
After this, I'm going to show you some videos.
Okay.
for sure. But again, if you haven't checked it out, watch School Daze. It's on Amazon right now. You can also watch it on YouTube TV. It's only $2.99. Support your boy Spike Lee. He's an amazing writer, producer, and director. Actor. He acts in the movie, so he always makes little cameos if he's not the main character. So definitely check it out. And again, I want to leave you with a little quote from the movie. Just like Dap said in the end, wake up. Wake up!